What's a really powerful effect in a turn based game? How about taking extra turns? You know, when Magic was first released, there was Time Walk, and Time Walk is famously one of the Power 9 cards. It's the 2 mana blue sorcery that allows you to take an extra turn after this one. And of course, as it became part of the Power 9, that should tell you it's one of the most broken cards ever made. 2 mana for an extra turn. Now, obviously, in a turn based game, an extra turn is very, very, very important. And so eventually, WotC would say, hey, why don't we revisit taking extra turns? And Final Fortune was one of the ways they did it. And they said, okay, well, it'll be 2 mana, but you'll lose the game at the end of that turn. And slightly after that, they would take another stab at it. Again, take an extra turn, again with no downside, but unlike the original Time Walk, Time Warp from Tempest was 5 mana. And so they thought, well, that's kind of balanced where it's the right amount of mana to take an extra turn. And in my opinion, Final Fortune is just as powerful as Time Walk, or 95% as powerful. Losing at the end of the turn really isn't a big deal. So imagine this. You take your first turn of the game, you have 7 or 8 cards in your hand, you have no permanents, and how much power can you exercise on the first turn of the game? Not a lot. You may have a cheesy combo deck that does something cute, but for the most part, you will become generally more powerful every turn as the game goes on. Now, there are exceptions to that. You play cards out of your hand, that reduces your power. You trade creatures in combat, that reduces your power. Your opponent plays various types of disruption that destroy your permanents, that reduces your power. But in general, your power goes up as the game goes on. And so your most powerful turn will generally be the last turn of the game. And obviously, if you're going to use Final Fortune, you use it at what would normally be the last turn of the game. And you get an extra turn after that to do all your most powerful things for one additional turn. And so, some of the specific kind of cases where this becomes so amazing is, let's say you and your opponent are trading tit for tat, attacking with all your creatures every turn. And so each of you is just attacking. Say you each have 1 or 2 or 3 creatures, and you're just attacking, and your opponent's creatures are all tapped because they attacked their last turn. And now you attack, your opponent's open, and then you play Final Fortune, and on your next free turn, you'll get to attack again with with no defenders. Situations like that, you get all your mana back because you get another untap phase, you get another draw phase, you get another card. So all of these things put your opponent on the back foot in terms of you having way more resources, having that extra turn, and again, you're at your most powerful because you're choosing to play this at the end of the game. Now, there's another interesting situation, and I play this card in Sly. I play 2 copies of it in Sly. And there's this interesting situation where you have it in your hand, you don't have enough to win, but you look at the board and you say, well, my opponent will beat me on their next turn. And so you say, well, I'll do what I can this turn and I'll play the Final Fortune. And on my free turn, I'll see if there's any possible way I can dig out of this hole and win. And so there are rare cases like that where it can turn a defeat into a win. But generally what it's going to do is accelerate the win or make your possible win a sure thing by giving you that extra turn that your opponent can't respond to. And another thing that's kind of interesting to me is when you look at pre-modern Magic deck builds, when you look at old Type 2 deck builds back when this card was Type 2 legal, and again, this card was reprinted in, I believe, 6th and 7th edition, so it had a couple of separate runs of Type 2 legality back in the 90s and early 2000s. But when you look, there were not a lot of decks that used it. And of course, you can see this has a gold border, meaning it's a World Championship deck reprint. So it did get some love in the time. But I'm continuously surprised at how few red decks actually incorporate this card, either in today's pre-modern Magic scene or in the old Type 2 decks. And I think it's incredibly powerful, as Time Walk showed us being one of the Power 9 2 mana for an extra turn. here you go, 2 mana for an extra turn. You lose at the end of the extra turn, but oh well, you were either going to lose anyway, or you've already calculated that you're guaranteed to win. So that's why I say this is a great piece of pre-modern power. If you like this kind of content, like, comment, share, and subscribe. Join me on Final Trade. I'd love to have you. Thanks a lot.